Now we are on way to start our second session, which is with Dr. Mukesh Nandave. The topic for the second session would be precision medicine, shift from one size fits all towards patient-centric treatment. We are waiting for Sir to join.
I'm connecting with Deepika. I'm connecting with the sir. Just wait a second.
Yes, ma'am.
Hello. Yeah. Am I audible, Dr. Monica?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Dr. Mukesh Nandave sir is here with us. Before sir to start the session, I would like to give a brief introduction. Dr. Mukesh Nandave is an associate professor in Department of Pharmacology at Delhi Pharmaceutical
Hello,
Sciences.
Deepika. We have Mukesh sir with us.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Sir
Am
is
I
with us.
audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
So we have Mukesh sir with us. Please ask Abhijit to make him a presenter.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I will
Actually,
just made him as present. Yes, I will made him present.
the presenter now.
Deepika, you can go ahead with the introduction part.
Sir, am I audible?
Yes, yes, of course.
Yes. Yes, so we are here. Before sir to start the session, I'm giving a short, brief introduction. Dr. Mukesh Nandave is an associate professor in Department of Pharmacology at Delhi Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research University, New Delhi. Dr. Nandave earned his PhD in pharmacology from AIIMS Delhi and received his postdoctoral training from the Division of Cardiothoracic Surgery, the Ohio State University Medical Center, Columbus, USA. Since more than 12 years, Dr. Nandavi has been investigating the roles of nutraceuticals, herbomineral formulations, plant extracts, and constituents of myocardial ischemia and reperfusion injury, diabetes, obesity, and pain management. He has published more than 75 papers in peer-reviewed national and international journals. His lab received more than 2 crore total funding from government as well as from industry, including farmers, Dabur, Charak, etc. Dr. Nandave has received numerous awards, including J. Achari Gold Medal by Indian Pharmacological Society, Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India, Young Pharmacy Teacher of the Year Award, the Indus Foundation Award for Research Excellence, Early Investigator Award by International Society for Heart Research, Professor Dugirala Vishweshwaram and Professor Srimantula Satyanarayana Prize, Best Research Output of the Year for 2014-15, 2013-14, and 2000 Award of the SENMIMS University. Dr. Nandave is a life member of various professional bodies, including International Society of Heart Research, International Academy of Cardiovascular Sciences, Indian Pharmacological Society, Indian Pharmaceutical Association, Association of Physiologists and Pharmacologists of India, Association of Pharmaceutical Teachers of India, and Society of Ethnopharmacology. Thank you so much, sir. Over to you.
Good afternoon. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, sir.
Okay. First of all, I'm really thankful to organizers, especially Dr. Monica and her team, for giving me this opportunity to talk at a national platform that is funded by AICT and Atal. Theme is really, I like the theme that patient-centric, and all the healthcare efforts should be patient-centric, and that is really important from current point of time. I'm also thankful to AICT for giving this opportunity, and I must appreciate organizers, the whole team, for really smooth coordination. In fact, I apologize that I sent my details very late because of some preoccupied assignments. So today I'm going to talk about one more patient-centric approach, that is precision medicine. And precision medicine is known by different names like personalized medicine, precision medicine, or pharmacogenomics. Okay. So through this, my 45 minutes to 1 hour talk, I will try my best to convey that how precision medicine uh, has a huge potential to deliver the patient-centric healthcare. Now, let me share so that I will be more clear what I mean. Is slide visible?
Yes, sir, it is visible.
Okay. So my point here that when there are two philosophies, if I talk about the what you call drug repurposing, and if I talk about the precision medicine, there are two philosophies. One, that to avoid to reduce the cost, to reduce the time, resources, and to get the maximum utilization of one drug. People are trying to use one drug into multiple conditions, like aspirin as an analgesic, antipyretic, antiplatelet, anti-cancer, as a treatment for pregnancy-related complications. So that is the one concept, that aspirin fits into multiple uh, disease conditions as a treatment. But there is also
Excuse me, sir.
another, yes.
Sir, your slides are not in full screen.
Okay. Uh, are you able to see the change in the slide? See, this is my title slide. This is the second slide.
No, sir.
Hold on. Okay, is it possible if I magnify, if not slide?
Yes, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Okay, or let me try this again. Are you able to see now slideshow?
No, sir.
Okay, so let me use them in a magnified mode, if that is visible. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the first thing, first philosophy, that one drug fits into multiple, or it is utilized into multiple conditions, like as I quote the example of aspirin as an analgesic, antipyretic, anti-inflammatory, antiplatelet, anti-cancer, and the treatment for pregnancy-related complications. And then one more thing, that aspirin can also use in extending or increasing the lifespan or longevity. Okay, because of the its effect on certain proteins. Okay, so that is one example where the drug is utilized into multiple conditions. But in case of other philosophy, that is precision medicine, that every patient is unique, and that's why that patient needs a unique way of treatment or unique treatment. And that is what about the precision medicine. Now, what do you achieve by approach of precision medicine? That you increase your success rate, you increase your possibility of better therapeutic outcome, you decrease the possibility of side effects or toxic effects, and that is what the advantage of precision medicine. Okay, so let me take you through a conventional or classical way of treatment. That earlier time, whenever the patient approached the doctor used to ask some set of questions to catch what are the symptoms, and based on that signs and symptoms, there may be what you call the diagnosis, and then based on that diagnosis, the treatment and then dosage was decided. Okay, but what is the lacuna of that? That this was the trial and error approach, non-specific, non-selective, and uniformized. Okay, and means what is seen by the doctor was only considered to decide, sorry, to diagnose and decide the treatment. That is what I mean, the phenotype. Okay, so in classical approach or the conventional way of treatment, doctor used to use the trial and error approach. Now, if you are a good observer, then you will catch maximum signs and symptoms precisely. But if you are not, then yes, your signs and symptom, your observation may be very non-specific, very non-selective, and obviously the diagnosis will be incomplete. And if diagnosis is incomplete, then treatment and then doses decided will also be incomplete. That was the conventional way of treatment. Okay. Now, in 20th century, one fits to all. Okay, because target was the disease. By anyhow, you want to treat the diabetes, you want to treat the heart attack, you want to treat the heart failure. So disease was the target. Okay, patient was not the target. And that's why many drugs tried by trial and error approach, and if particular drug works, and then doctor used to interpret that this is the right treatment for that disease. Okay, so it was basically evidence-based medicine. Hmm? Evidence-based medicine means if particular drug is effective in majority of the patient population, that used to understood that this is the right way to treat, or this is the right treatment for that disease. Okay, and that was the approach in the 20th century. That target was disease, not the patient. Hmm? And it was mostly practiced by evidence base. Okay, which drug shows benefit in majority of the patient will be considered as a best drug. Okay, but this approach was not that effective. Okay, why? Because this is the disease severity. Now, when it is increased, diagnosis was to happen. Based on that sign and symptoms, diagnosis was done, and based on that diagnosis, drug was selected. If that doesn't work, then you switch off that treatment and you shift to the another drug and switch on the another drug treatment. If that again not working, then again switch the drug. So it was simply trial and error. Okay. And meanwhile, while switching off and on, or this trial and error approach, disease was severely or severity of the disease was increasing. Okay, and the disease severity is kind of a strange, and if that crosses, then treatment or the management of disease becomes very difficult, or you can say out of the control. Okay, and that was the old paradigm. Okay, where you switch on and switch off the treatment till you find your uh, best outcome. Okay, but even at this point, if you select a right drug, but because the disease is now very severe, this best drug may not be effective at all. Okay, or if effective, maybe for a shorter time. Okay, and again losing the effectiveness. So prognosis of such old paradigm was not that encouraging. Okay, and this is the slide that tells that whatever the drugs we have, maybe for the treatment of hypertension, heart failure treatment, or hypercholesterolemia, okay, the even best class of drugs are not effective in 100% population. Okay, in case of cardiovascular diseases like hypertension, heart failure, and hypercholesterolemia, the best class of drugs or best available treatments are also not effective in 100% patient population. If I talk about the AC inhibitors in the treatment of hypertension, maybe only 10 to 30% patient show a maximum or best treatment effectiveness. Whereas beta blockers in the treatment of heart failure, only 15 to 25% show a acceptable response. Okay, and then statins, which is cornerstone therapy for treatment of hyperlipidemia, is also effective in 30 to 70% population, and rest of them are maybe non-responders or maybe resistant. Okay, I would not say resistant, maybe non-responders. But why this happens? This happens because of their genetic makeup. And that is what I actually mean, that every patient is unique, and that's why the patient needs a unique treatment, unique way to treat. Okay. Now, because of this non-responders, okay, what happened? The most drugs are not or partially effective in 60% of the treated patients. Okay. And side effects were responsible for more than lakh of deaths, 2 million hospitalization, 100 billion US dollar cost for healthcare in USA, and 6.7% of patients in hospitals experience the serious adverse drug reactions. Okay, and 50% of the cases of serious adverse drug reactions were related to genetics. Okay, and that is what the importance of genetics. So to highlight the importance of genetics, I just would like to show this cartoon, that earlier if someone broken the what you call, I mean, I can say this is the patient, and uh, based on the sign and symptoms, the doctor used to prescribe the treatment. Okay, but now doctor has to consider the genetic makeup of that patient and then decide the treatment. So this is what the best way to customize or personalize the treatment. Okay. Now here is the what you call role of precision or personalized medicine. And what is that? Is basically use of information and data from the patient's genotype and phenotype. So if I'm endorsing that genetic information is important, I don't literally means that phenotype is not important. Okay. Sign and symptoms are equally important, but yes, along with the sign and symptoms, doctor has to consider the genetic makeup of that patient as well. Okay. And that is what included into precision or personalized medicine. So the use of information and data from the patient's genotype and phenotype, where the level of gene expression or the clinical information is considered to stratify disease. Okay, to stratify the disease. And if you correctly stratify the disease, you will successful in selecting the right medication for that patient, and then provide the therapy and initiate preventive measures that are particularly suited that patient at the time of administration. Okay, that is what the technical definition of precision medicine. If I simplify it, that if you are prescribing the treatment by considering the genetic information of that patient along with the sign and symptoms, then you are practicing the personalized or precision medicine. And this is what the patient-centric approach. So basically, this precision medicine is a combination, or this precision medicine discipline requires the contribution from field of genomics, field of informatics, and field of medicine. Okay, if these three work together, then we can practice personalized medicine, precision medicine in an effective manner. Okay, and this technologies of genomics, I can say omics technology, facilitating the practice of precision medicine. Now, if I talk about the historical milestones, let me magnify. Okay. So if I talk about the historical milestones, you all know this earlier events, that Mendel publishes his work on invisible inherited factors, what we know today, genes. And that happened in 1866. Then in 1869, first DNA first identified by Friedrich Michel, what we call nuclein. Okay, and in 1953, Watson and Crick identified the molecular structure of DNA. Okay, and this is how the lot of things or lot of events happen. And today, if I talk about the personalized healthcare initiative that was launched was in 2007. Okay, and in 2015, the Precision Medicine Initiative was announced during the multiple country conference, that is SOTU. And then this precision medicine initiative was first from the cancer point of view, okay, that how treatment can be personalized for the treatment and management of cancer. Okay, so these are the various milestones. In fact, in 2015, uh, President Barack Obama announced that tonight I'm launching a new precision medicine initiative to bring us closer to curing diseases like cancer and diabetes, and to give all of us access to personalized information that we need to keep ourselves and our families healthier. Okay, so that is what the official announcement of precision medicine initiative. And as I told you, it was the cancer and diabetes, the target or targeted diseases, so that you manage them, you treat them in a better manner. Okay, then why uh, why genetic information is really important, or why we should consider genetic information when we talk about the precision medicine? Because human DNA approximately contains 3 billion DNA base pairs that are located on 23 pairs of chromosomes, and whole human genome contains 20,000 to 25,000 genes. Okay, and this project, Human Genome Project, was completed in 2003. Okay, and after that we got to know that yes, every individual is unique and need a unique way to treatment. Okay, so there are different way to what you call do the genetic testing, and like a whole genome or exome sequencing. And whole genome means you encode the or sequence the coding and regulatory element of our DNA, whereas in exome sequencing, you only sequence the coding regions of our DNA. Okay, and then other way, that is specific single gene test, where specific gene is tested. Basically, what is its expression, whether it is overexpressed or down-regulated. Okay, for example, BRCA1 and BRCA2 testing in breast cancer. Then you also carry out the genetic testing by measuring the set of genes, what we call specific gene panels. And this panel testing is for multiple mutations that cause the same phenotype. For example, panels for autism, panels for hereditary deafness. Okay, so that is what the another way to test the uh, genetic testing. Okay, and this is one example that you carry out the testing. That testing kit name is a 23andMe. Okay, that was from Navigenics company, which included the panel of SN page associated with the common and complex diseases. Okay, so where you collect the saliva and carry out the set of tests, and then based on that test, you used to get the expression of genes or under expression of the genes, and that used to indicate the risk. Okay, so for example, if I talk about the drug response, then whether clopidogrel, abacavir, acetaldehyde toxicity, fluorouracil toxicity, and hepatic hepatitis C treatment response. Okay, so based on the various traits or tests which are for various carrier traits. So this kit used to test for more than 35 carrier traits, more than 19 appearance traits, then 3 ancestry reports and 4 wellness reports. It used to cost $199. Because this test was not leading to any treatment decision, so FDA discontinued the treatment, this kit. Okay, but then there are what you call different tests to decide whether the particular drug will be effective or resistance into uh, that particular patient. Okay, now advanced way to find out the genetic variation, you can use the omics technology like epigenomics, proteomics, metabolomics, lipidomics, exposomics, and microbiomics. So in this omics technologies, you what you call measure the proteins, you measure the genes, you measure the metabolites. Okay, so I will skip this, but yes, other sources of variability include proteomics. That means the qualitative or and quantitative comparison of proteomes under the different conditions to further unravel the biological diseases. Okay, so for example, proteins that are expressed by normal versus cancer cells. Okay, we have the so many well characterized antigens which are expressed by only cancer cells, not by the normal cells. And based on that well characterized established antigens, we can target the therapy. Okay, for example, this EGFR activators. Okay, so EGFR matlab epidermal growth factor receptor activators, and this EGFR activators drugs are erlotinib, gefitinib. Okay, and these drugs are used in particularly uh, treatment of non-small cell lung cancer. So basically, the first line of treatment for the non-small cell lung cancer is parenteral chemotherapy. Okay, that include carboplatin and other drugs. But if patient uh, are not able to tolerate the parenteral chemotherapeutic drug, then uh, doctor or oncologist can shift from parenteral chemotherapy to the oral chemotherapy, and where the role of EGFR activators come. But before shifting from parenteral to oral chemotherapy, patient has to carry out a particular test for EGFR mutation. And if that mutation is present in the that lung cancer patient, then only this oral anti-cancer drugs, that is EGFR activators, can be prescribed and administered. Okay, so this is one example that uh, how the every patient is unique, and that's why need a unique treatment. Now, microbiomics, the collective genomes of the microorganisms that reside in an environmental niche. Okay, that includes the bacteria, eukaryotes, and viruses. Then you have the metabolomics. You have so many chemical processes uh, or chemical reactions going on in our body. Okay, so when we see that when we study that what you call metabolic processes, then obviously metabolites will form. So study of that metabolic profile is basically metabolomics. Okay, so systemic study of the unique chemical fingerprints that specific cellular processes leave behind. Okay, so for example, if neurotransmitters are released then neurotransmitters are also metabolized. Okay, why? Because they are released for particular role, and if that role is performed by the neurotransmitter, then they are inactivated. So metabolism of them is the best mechanism to inactivate them. So when they are metabolized, then metabolites are formed. Okay, and studying that metabolites is also important for studying the particular disease. So for example, we can analyze the metabolite profile to see if the genetic alteration causes a change in phenotype or can use in toxicology analysis. Okay, so that is metabolomics. Then lipidomics, study of pathways and networks of cellular lipids in biological systems. Then exposomics is basically study of totality of human environmental exposures from conception onwards. Okay, because why particular cancer is very prevalent in particular state or particular region in the India or in a particular country, that may be because environmental exposure is very high, okay, for particular carcinogens. Okay, so studying that uh, totality of human environmental exposure from conception onwards, okay, can be included into exposomics. And other factors that influence the tailored medicine approach include patient preferences and patient behaviors. Okay, so this is what I actually wanted, that how these metaomics technologies are altering. Because when we studied the genes, okay, then we call genomics. When we studied the mRNA, then we call that transcriptomics or transcriptome. Okay, and when we studied the label or proteins and their structure and characterize them, we call proteomics. Okay, we have more than 1 lakh of proteins, different proteins in the body. Okay, and when we studied the metabolites form in our body because of certain metabolism reactions, then we call metabolomics. There are nearly 5,000 metabolites formed out of different metabolism processes. Okay. Now, if we consider, then what will happen? That the under this new paradigm shift, okay, or new what you call approach of medical care, which is much more patient centric, will help in studying the predisposition. Okay, so if you carry out the screening of panel of genes or proteins or metabolites, then you can know in advance who will be or who will have a high risk to develop a particular disease and who will have the least risk of developing the disease. So predisposition can be known. Okay, and if you know, or if we establish a relation that particular protein, particular gene expression or particular antigen expression is important and really related with the particular cancer or the particular disease, so what we can do, we can use that metabolite, we can use that receptor, we can use that protein for screening. Okay, so mass screening is really important approach for providing the patient-centric healthcare. Okay, let me put one example here. So if I talk about the cancer, the incidence and prevalence of cancer is much higher in Western countries compared to the India. Okay, but the mortality is very less compared to in India. Why? Because they have a screening program in their healthcare system. One of the example, that 3F. So if the female, fat, and age is more than 40, female, fat, and more than 40-year-old, then they have a screening compulsory for cervical, ovarian, and reproductive system related cancers. And why they are able to do that screening? Because they have the established what you call diagnostic markers. And the diagnostic markers can be enzyme, can be gene, can be protein, can be antigen, okay? And based on that, they can screen and know in advance that who is having the higher risk of developing cervical or ovarian or uterine cancer. Okay, so this screening will help to catch the disease at very early stage, and if you catch it at an early stage, reversal of the disease to the health is highly possible. Okay, and that is what the positive outcome of knowing the predisposition, knowing the health status in advance. Then simultaneously, if you have established biomarkers or diagnostic markers, then we can precisely diagnose. And that's why if we precisely diagnose, we can select the right drug. And then if the right drug is given, then obviously higher level of therapeutic outcome is possible. Okay. So diagnosis, like correct diagnosis means 50% treatment is already done. Okay, and that is what the importance of accurate diagnosis or precise diagnosis. And if precisely diagnosed and rightly treated, then prognosis is as well better. Okay, and if prognosis is better, then obviously the lifespan despite of the disease will also better. Then if you have a set of biomarkers that may be antigens, enzymes, receptors, genes, then we can monitor whether your prescribed treatment is working as per your expectation, as per the pre-decided therapeutic goal or not. So this precision medicine can help you to monitor the disease, you monitor the what you call treatment. Okay. For example, if I talk about the diabetes, then HbA1c is a best diagnostic marker. So HbA1c helps you to diagnose whether person is a non-diabetic or diabetic. If if diabetic, then based on the percentage or level of HbA1c, whether person is mild diabetic or severely diabetic or uncontrolled diabetic. When you decide the treatment, whether that treatment is working or not. So measurement of 3-month HbA1c will tell you whether your prescribed treatment is working as per your expectation or not. If not, then you can switch on to another drug. So if your current prescribed treatment is able to maintain the HbA1c less than 7 or 7, then your treatment is working as per the decided therapeutic goal. Okay, so that is what the role of precision medicine in predisposition, screening, diagnosis, making the prognosis better, selecting the right drug, and monitoring the prescribed therapy. So this is what the what you call change. Okay, and what is future? So you can take the preventive measures. If you know that this is what the possibility, then you can take the preventive measures. But let me tell you, even we know that sedentary lifestyle, then poor eating habits, stress, chewing tobacco, smoking cigarette, taking high salt or high fat diet leads to a lifestyle related disease most of you ignore. Okay, but at least those are vigilant towards their health, they can use this information and take the preventive measure. Okay, take the preventive measure. So preventive measures are always better than the curative measure. Okay, because once disease happen, then maybe reversal is not possible, progression cannot be arrested. Okay, so it's better to take the preventive measures so that you remain healthy, not the sick. Okay, so this is what the future paradigm. And if I talk about the precision medicine in cardiovascular, these are the few what you call highlights that how American Heart Association in 2017 launched the precision medicine platform, particularly for cardiovascular disease and the precise or personalized treatment approach. Okay. Now, this is what is the precision medicine in treatment of cardiovascular diseases. Okay. So this is the standard care that you record the sign and symptoms, and based on that you treat the patient. This is generalized recommendation. Okay, so if that drug works in or effective in a majority of the population, then by default cardiologists will give that most effective in a majority of the patients. Okay, but if we talk about the precision cardiology, what we'll do, we will use the multi-omic information, machine learning, and based on that you will categorize. Okay, this is the whole population, and you will stratify or you will categorize the whole population into responders and non-responders. Okay, for example, this red color, okay, this red color are non-responders to hydrochlorothiazide, calcium channel blockers, or maybe AC inhibitors, maybe what you call hypolipidemic drugs. But these are the effective or responder patients. Okay, so you are stratifying specifically who are responders and who are non-responders. And if non-responders, then even prescribing the best treatment and administering them will not work. Okay, so what you are doing, you are not unnecessarily exposing the patients to the non-responding drugs. Okay, and you are only giving to the patients those are responders. So this approach is a data-driven recommendation, clinician review, and then decision. Okay, and here you can use the different what you call technologies. For example, clinical genome sequencing, targeted therapeutics, genetic risk scores, and induced pluripotent stem cells. And then even you can use the CRISPR genome editing for identifying that what are the potentials to stop the disease before it starts. Okay, and then disease study the target disease at a DNA level, and if possible you can do the editing. Okay, so if you remember that recent case that 18 crore and one dose was given to the rare disease, that was a skeletal muscle dystrophy disease that was happen in a little girl from the Mumbai region, I think. And Roche or Novartis drug was given, and one dose costed the parents 18 crores. And out of that 18 crores, 2 crore was only import duty. That was waiver by the Modi government. Okay, so why that drug was very specific? Because that skeletal muscle dystrophy was a genetic disorder, and correcting that genetic defect was the only best possible approach. And that's why that treatment work, and that patient could live again a normal life. Okay, now when we use this genomic data, then that genomic data can be used not only for the disease, not only for the treatment of the disease, but even you can use in a healthy people. Okay, so in healthy people, you can measure the early markers of the disease and know that whether that healthy person have a future risk for that particular disease or not. Okay, and this comes under the preventive medicine approach or disease prevention. Okay, if the healthy person becomes sick, then which disease that person is having can be diagnosed by help of diagnostic markers. Okay, and if you know what is the disease, then you can classify which particular disease. Okay, for example, hyperlipidemia can be a hyperlipidemia or can be familial hyperlipidemia. Okay, means someone is obese, someone is having the sedentary lifestyle or poor eating habits, that person can develop a hyperlipidemia and obesity. Okay, but even the person is vigilant towards the physical activity, diet, and eating habits, still person can have a hyperlipidemia, which we call familial hyperlipidemia. Okay, so you can differentiate the hyperlipidemia from the familial hyperlipidemia by carrying out the or measuring the specific genes. Okay, and that will help you to classify the disease. Okay, and this comes under the disease management strategy. Okay, then once there is a disease and you have a diagnosed it correctly, then you can decide the drug. And once you decide the drug, you can monitor the treatment, whether your treatment is working as per the expectation or not. Okay, and that we can do by measuring the efficacy markers. We can measure by toxicity markers. We can do the patient stratification in clinical trials. So this comes under the disease management. Okay, and this is called as a pharmaceutical intervention. Okay, you know, patient stratification in the clinical trial. This is really important. Okay, for example, innovator company intends to what you call study uh, patient what you call intends to study the maybe antidepressant drugs. Okay, now that depression can be the depression can be what you call resistant to tricyclic antidepressants. Okay, so if we enroll the depression patients without stratifying their genetic makeup, then what will happen? Maybe in 100 clinical trial depression patients or the volunteers, maybe that novel tricyclic antidepressant showing effectiveness into maybe 30 patients or maybe 70 patients, not in a 30 remaining 30 patients. And that may be that patients are resistant to the tricyclic antidepressants. Okay, so there is no fault of drug. There is a what you call genetic makeup that is different in different depression patients. So rather than enrolling the clinical trial subjects in a randomized manner, innovator can stratify, measure the genetic, what you call carry out the genetic testing for particular set of genes and then enroll. Okay, and you enroll only responders. So what will happen? Out of 100, maybe all 100 will show the response if that TCA drug is effective. Okay, so what will happen? The success rate will be a success rate to execute or complete the clinical trial is very much possible. And again, based on that obtained data, innovator will get the marketing approval from the regulatory agency. Okay. In absence of this approach, what will happen? That regulatory agency will tell that only 70 responded to your treatment and 30 are not showing at all. That means there is a fault at your treatment, not into the patients. Okay. So what will happen? The innovator will face problems getting marketing approval. And that is why you use this precision medicine approach again during the clinical trial to make it what you call systematic and successful attempt to get the to evaluate clinically and get the marketing approval. Okay. Now this is what is the precision medicine in management of dilated cardiomyopathy. So normal heart, then early disease and overt what you call dilated cardiomyopathy. And based on that, you can uh, carry out the deep phenotyping. And when you carry out the deep phenotyping, then only you treat the patient. Okay. Now there are, apart from the cardio, apart from the cancer, apart from the cardiovascular or hyperlipidemia, hypertension, or heart failure, there are other way to use the precision medicine as an approach, patient-centric approach. So these are the few examples that Roche AmpliChip is the cytochrome P450 test, which can help you to predict the patient's response to various therapies. This is one. The second, that is DNA print genomics statinome, which is the design approach to measure the likelihood of developing myalgia as an adverse response to the commonly prescribed statins such as atorvastatin and simvastatin. Okay. So what I mean here, this test can tell you in advance that who will have the high possibility of developing the myalgia if that person takes the treatment with the atorvastatin and simvastatin. Okay. So if this test result shows that someone is over responsive to the myalgia, then what we can do? We can use the other drug in place of atorvastatin and simvastatin, so that patient will not have a myalgia kind of adverse effect. So this is what the predisposition to the particular drug related toxicity, so that you can use the better treatment. Okay. And there what you call sorry so the time will come that you will show that along with the prescription, you will show your AmpliChip CYP450 array results to the doctor or the pharmacist. And based on that prescription and based on that your diagnostic test results, maybe doctor and pharmacist will give you a better drug. Okay. And another, that is qPCR based expression profile of 11 genes that help to assist physicians in managing the heart transplant patients for potential organ rejection. Okay. So if there is a urgent need or only organ transplant or heart transplant is the only option in a patient, then you can know in advance that what is the risk of developing the organ rejection in a particular patient. Okay. And that can be known by AlloMap. Okay. Where you measure the profile or gene expression of 11 set of 11 genes to know how much is the organ rejection risk in that patient. Okay. And you know this famous example that why Angelina Jolie removed her breast, because the test indicated her that she was having the high risk of developing the breast cancer. Okay. So you will know so many examples in future that maybe celebrity, maybe maybe actors and actresses and players who are taking advanced measures because they are having the high risk of developing a particular disease. Okay. And with this, I'd like to conclude that future of personalized medicine is really bright to provide the patient-centric treatment or healthcare. And we must consider this, or we must accept this approach. But yes, there are some limitations as well. But if I talk about the advantages or the disadvantages, you will always have a better vertical side. That is, you can know in advance, you can know that which drug will be effective and which drug will not be effective. Okay. So this is all from my side. If any question from audience or participants, I'll be most happy to answer. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for a very knowledgeable session on patient-centric treatment. With your permission, may we take some questions?
Yeah, sure.
There is one question from Abhijit Devnath, sir. Want to know what is the opinion on precision medicine on rare diseases? Yes, sir. Am I audible?
So
Yes,
I was
yes.
seeking, so actually, I was seeking your opinion because there are lots of rare diseases like spinal muscular atrophy. You might have heard about 16 crore of this, that is for a single dose is required. So, sir, what is your opinion regarding that of precision medicine?
Yes. See, in case of rare diseases also, this personalized medicine offers a great hope. And see, when there is a worst prognosis or worst outcome for the rare disease patient also, and if the precision medicine helps to cure that completely and makes that patient again normal or healthy, then precision medicine should be practiced, or that approach should be accepted. So that is one thing. But yes, other side that as you call it is a rare disease, obviously return on investment for the pharmaceutical company will be also limited. But that doesn't mean that we should not develop, or the pharma company should not develop a treatment for such patients. Yes, what you call little bit liberty, little bit regulatory freedom, and then funding support from the government and regulators can develop a confidence into the pharma company to again take an interest into drugs for rare diseases. But yes, we should practice precision medicine for even rare diseases.
Right, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, recently, Google's DeepMind Alpha, they have actually developed AlphaFold, one that is a machine learning based tool, and it is claiming that they can predict the 3D structure of protein with much more accuracy than other computational tools. So, do you think that such kind of new machine learning based tools will be helpful to get our such kind of difficulties what we are facing in right now?
See,
Right?
development of the diagnostics or diagnostic markers, proteins, and antigens is a continuous process until and unless a clear and established relation cannot be developed or demonstrated by the innovators. Clinicians or regulators cannot accept it as a tool or a technology to diagnose and predict in advance. Yes, that diagnostic marker or the technology has to go through the required process of regulation, and maybe this we can use that.
So the
Uh,
problem is that yes, sir.
Comparatively, see, we can measure the blood glucose in saliva, lacrimal secretion, even with the infrared technology, non-invasive way to measure it. But still, what is acceptable is plasma glucose. Then next comes to the fingertip glucose or whole blood glucose. And then another accepted, that is interstitial glucose. So you have that you obtain the systemic blood and then measure the HbA1c or measure the blood sugar. The second approach use that is you use the fingertip blood glucose, and then another that is continuous glucose monitors. Okay, where the very small sensor goes into the what you call subcutaneous region, and that continuously measure and gives you the blood glucose every 5 minutes. Okay, but then if I compare the systemic blood glucose level and the continuous glucose monitoring device blood glucose, there is always a difference of plus minus 20 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so what that means, that systemic blood glucose is more accurate compared to the interstitial glucose. Okay, but yes, for continuous monitoring of the physically active or the person who is having very hectic schedule can at least get a rough idea where the blood, his or her blood glucose is going. You can know the trend of blood glucose and take the corrective measure. For example, if your continuous glucose monitoring device tells you that your glucose is maybe 100 milligram per deciliter, okay, and if that is actually 125, so what will happen? Before that person goes into the hypoglycemia, that person can take the corrective measure and eat something so that that blood glucose will not go beyond 70 milligram per deciliter. Okay, so itna uska application ho sakta hai. Okay, but to decide whether the treatment is effective or not, whether we should switch to the another drug, then you should rely on systemic blood glucose, not the continuous glucose monitoring device. So for diagnosis purpose, for treatment decisions, you can rely on a systemic glucose, but for continuous monitoring to get a rough idea to know the trend, you can rely on a continuous glucose monitoring device. So every technology or every method has a pros and cons. So आपको आप convenient to उसको use करना है.
Right. Thank you, sir, for giving me more elaboration. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. We have one more question from the audience side. Dr. Amit Gangal, sir, want to know what is the difference between precision, personalized, and personal medicine? Can we use this term interchangeably?
See, I can say pharmacogenomics and I can say personalized or precision medicine. So knowing the genetics of the person and prescribing the treatment is, I can say, personalized medicine. Okay. Then precision medicine, again, the same thing. Interchangeably, it is used. If I talk about the pharmacogenomics, then knowing the genomics of the patient and then deciding the drug is the pharmacogenomics. Okay. But precision medicine or knowing the genetic is not only to decide the drug. If you recall the definition, what I said, that knowing the genetic information can also to whether that person is healthy or sick. If sick, then which disease is that person is having. If you know the disease, then at what stage that person is having that disease. Okay. If that disease is subclassified, I gave the example of what you call familial hypercholesterolemia and hyperlipidemia. Okay. So precision medicine is not only to decide the drug, it's also to know the risk, classify the disease, to diagnose the disease, to know the staging or severity of the disease and to decide the treatment, monitor the treatment. So this is what is precision medicine. So yes, it can be utilized, but when we use to specifically select the disease, then we call, specifically select the drug, we can call it as a pharmacogenomics.
Dr. Amit, if you want to interact with our honorable speaker, you can also unmute yourself because I have allowed you mic.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. We can hear you. Yes.
For unmuting me. Very wonderful session by sir. Can you please give some example of commercially hit precision medicine brands in India or overseas market?
What you said?
Example of any commercially available commercial blockbuster brand coming into this category of precision medicine.
I already quoted some diagnostic tests like AmpliChip and set up qPCR based kit to know the heart transplant rejection.
Okay, okay. One example I think was of Roche company.
Yes.
Thank you.
Even if I talk about the cancer, I already quoted that example.
Right,
That Hyderabad-based diagnostic lab usually carry out what you call specific test for EGFR receptor mutation. So I distinctly remember that one of my known patient was suffering from the non-small cell lung cancer. So before she was shifted from the parenteral chemotherapy to the oral chemotherapy, a needle biopsy sample was sent to Hyderabad-based diagnostic lab to know whether that she is having the mutation of EGFR receptor or not. And when they found that there is a mutation, then only they shifted from parenteral to oral. That is, gefitinib was given.
Okay, sir. Thank you for your insights and putting light on this point. Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. Now I would like to call Abhijit sir to add on something on it.
Thank you, sir. We are so happy to listen to you for more than 1 hour. It was a great time to learn from you all the various aspects of particular this topic. We are really thankful to you for giving your precious time and sharing your knowledge. I hope all the participants got enough insights, and they are also going to teach those great success stories that you have mentioned, that how we can use precision medicine in our successful therapy also. I hope this your lecture will help our future students, and it will also inspire them to do much more in this particular area. This is a very important to note that many of the diseases are we fail to address right now. And I have listened to your entire lecture. I hope you have given lots of messages to us through your lecture. If we use those ideas, then we'll be able to get some really great. So we are really thankful to you, sir, for giving your precious time. We hope in future our activities and seminars, symposium also, you will be giving your time to us. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you so much, sir.
it's my pleasure.
Do you have any other questions, ma'am?
We have completed with questions.
Okay, so thank you so much, and allow me to leave the session if I'm done.
In the meeting 2:30. Thank you, everyone. We shall meet in 2:30.
Thank you so much, everyone. We have our third session with Dr. S. Ziol Abrar Hussain. The topic would be design thinking and quality by design, two sides of a same coin. We will start our third session by 2:30 p.m. Till then, we are on a short break. With this, I'm going to end the session, a part of the session of the FDP. Next part of the session will be hosted by one of my colleague, Sakshi Sharma. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll meet in the next part of the session.